I guess we are
So,
live.
yes, hey Rahul, thank you very much for joining, and super excited to have this real new activity that we've begun of having our launches and announcement go uh, in a more official and broader perspective instead of just limited to our POC and production customers. We plan to showcase this to.
Absolute pleasure to be here, Sayed. It's version 2.4. I'm really excited to talk about it. It brings a whole lot of changes in a great way, including everything from new features, new integrations, compliance additions, to everything from UX improvements. So UX improvements, huge UX improvements, like in terms of how the prioritization happens, how the findings are consumed, how the triaging happens. All of these features improvements are there. And the more important, which usually people don't see, users don't see, is the kind of scale that we have improved in version 2.4. In fact, I'll talk more about the specifics in the coming few minutes. How do you want to take this forward?
Sure. So, Rahul, initially, please walk us through in terms of, let's say, top three features that you as a CTO were like super excited to build alongside the product team and ship it real fast for the actual customers' requirements, let's say, in terms of the compliance revamp or and also with respect to the widgets in the overall dashboard, ASPM and CSPM, the entry point of any security engineers. View of the tool. And also the last top three I'd say is please showcase us the findings with respect to which tool did you integrate to generate more better findings and how the UX looks like. So
Absolutely.
please
I'm, I'm
take it from me.
I-
Yeah,
I'm totally stoked to show this. In fact, what I'll do is I'll do this. I'll have release notes. I'll go point by point, and then in cases where
sure.
where I can bring up the dashboard and show the real action. I'd love to do that. Yeah. So let me see if I can share my screen. Here we go. I think I'm sharing my right screen. Right. So do
Yeah,
you see? If you see AccuKnox CNAPP v2.4 release notes, that's the right screen. Fantastic. So
yes.
one of the prominent features, in fact, like you mentioned, right? Like it's a full CNAPP play. In fact, it's more than CNAPP. We have ASPM as well integrated in this solution. And year and a half back, we took this decision of having a platform play. Everything from code to cloud to runtime security to virtual machines and bare metal security we had in play. Today, we have a solution, we have a platform which will not only deliver on those capabilities but deliver it with great user experience, right? Like, so in fact, one of the specific examples that I can point to you is the clusters view. Now, when I talk about clusters, I mean both from Kubernetes point of view, Kubernetes clusters, as well as virtual machine clusters. We have we used to have previously findings across multiple clusters spread across multiple pages. We have done a great job about consolidating that in a way that, if a user wants to look at a particular cluster, look at all the details from that cluster perspective, right? Like, that's one of the primary changes that we have brought in. In fact, let me go into the actual specific and show you how it looks like. Yeah. So from the user experience perspective, anyone who had been a past user, solution user, would know that this is a major change. You'll see a lot of widgets and dashboard features get that have been added here. In this particular tenant, what I have is two cloud accounts, 29 clusters, both including Kubernetes as well as virtual machine clusters. That have been onboarded, one registry, and four code repositories have been onboarded, including the ISC code repositories. But the primary thing that I'm going to show you here right now is the clusters page. And this clusters page is essentially about uh, all the Kubernetes and virtual machine clusters that have been onboarded. I'll check whether I can show you a specific cluster which is connected, right? Like, all of out of this clusters, I have this particular cluster which is connected. This is a simple K3s cluster which we have onboarded, and the intention is here is to actually show in a consolidated view all the features in the context of that particular K3s cluster. What you see here is Kubernetes resource summary. You see all sorts of findings here, different widgets, that are positioned here, including everything from compliance. So this is an overview page. You see the cluster information, number of nodes that are in the context, number of workloads, namespaces, how many workloads are with active policies, and then if the cluster is connected, disconnected, all that information is shown here. Misconfigurations, every all the misconfiguration, including from cluster perspective, right? Like if you have a Kubernetes worker workload which is using root privileges or has privilege escalation enabled, or if a config map, or if a Kubernetes identity is has excessive permissions, all of these things are part of the solution. So this is from the alerts perspective. In this context, I don't think I'll have alerts in the context, but if there would have been any runtime alerts, that would have been shown here. The compliance, the Kubernetes CIS compliance and the continuous compliance is shown here. MITRE, PCI DSS, NIST, CIS, all of these things are taken care of here. And you see, there are two types of view. Here is the sample view, as in the summary view. Then you can go into the detailed view and then triage the findings, create tickets in the context of the finding, do prioritization and things like that. Policies, these are the policies that have been detected in the context of this particular cluster, and these are the policies which are applied, not applied, and things like that. Application
Rahul,
behavior is also, yes, yes,
one quick thing. In
please.
terms of policies,
Hmm.
there are two types, right? One is, let's say, behavioral, and another is
Yeah,
application based. So,
yeah,
in terms of, let's say, auto discovered, can you show us one policy that users can resonate in terms of, let's say, hey, I do not need to worry much about this policy breaking my uh, runtime posture and
right, right.
securing the right, like, let's say, a system event. So just doubling down on this area now.
Right, right. So here's an example, right? Like here's an example which is about a particular microservice. This microservice policy is auto discovered, and you see this policy is an allow based policy where we say, hey, these are the set of processes which should be allowed to execute in the target environment. These are the processes which needs to be allowed network execution rights, and these are the processes which needs to be allowed volume mount point access, right? Like all of this is part of the this policy. This is auto discovered policy. There are also other types of policies where you want certain things to be denied or only certain things to be allowed, all that. So here's an nginx policy where we have specifically said only allow wget to be executed in that particular workload. You'll see a lot of other services, these are all hardening based policies. So you'll see two types of policies. One is the allow based policies, and another are specific policies which are allow or block or audit based policies. Essentially, auditing specific actions or blocking specific actions. So these are the two different types of policies that are present, and it can be seamlessly enabled, disabled from here itself. For example, here in the context of MySQL, we have this particular policy which is automatically identified and applied.
Okay. And
A prerequisite,
also,
yeah,
uh, sorry to interrupt you all. With respect to, let's say, these policies, if suppose the contributors from the open source world want to give their like, let's say, contribution to this area, how can they do so? Is there any open
no,
source
so
repository that
we,
you
we
have?
we are heavily leveraging kubearmor in the context, but that's the policy engine that is available out there in open source. In general, since it's a CNCF project, we have a lot of contributors from outside world who are contributing to this policy engine, and making the world this a better place, a more secure place. Let me just put it that way. Users have been contributing everything from core features towards creating policy templates and things like that. So yeah, uh, uh, this is a community effort in that sense.
Got it. Yeah,
Cool.
back to you, Rolf, with respect to where you left.
Yeah, so from the other aspects, right, like the application behavior, showing application behavior, including what this cluster has been doing, what network connections have been spawned, what kind of workloads have been executing or making ingress and egress connections. All of this Kubernetes identities and entitlements management is part of the solution as well. So all of this put together, so for a given cluster, now you have all of these information put together at the same place, so that you don't have to run across multiple screens and check the status of the Kubernetes cluster. So this is a very valuable feature from the user perspective. So that's feature number one that I wanted to talk about. This is again, it makes It makes the consolidation of findings in the context of a particular asset is shown up in the specific place. That's a big value add. The other aspects are from the cloud and cluster compliance perspective. We have changed the user experience completely, in the sense that, hey, you want to look at a particular cloud account and see the compliance in the context for a particular region, for a particular cluster. For the cluster, we have CIS based compliance that we have already seen. So let me just go back to the this thing and show you the sample screens there. So I have a Kubernetes cluster. I have an account here. This is the AWS Telco account, and these are the different compliance standards that I have in the context, right? Like, so, all of these compliance standards with the corresponding score, with the asset summary, all of this information with its corresponding controls are listed out here. As a user, you can do triaging, you can create report, you can do export of findings and all those things in the context. Again, the important thing is the ability to show the compliance coverage for a cloud account, the ability to show asset-based compliance coverage, and the ability to show manual versus automated controls is the important thing to be noted here.
Now, in this context, how often does this scan happen?
Yeah, the scan happens on a per day basis, but that's frankly speaking configurable, in the sense that as a user, we provide you. So in this case, right, like, you see this particular account has been onboarded 8 months ago, but the scan has happened 14 hours ago. So we provide the user with the ability to actually schedule the scans, but in a lot of these scans, and schedule the scans for specific regions only. So all that configuration is part of the system.
By default, currently, is it about 24 hours a
24
day
hours.
that scan refreshes? Okay.
Yeah, every 24 hours it scans once. Yeah. But a lot of our customers want it to be scanned on multiple times, and that's a feature that is also available.
Available. Great.
Yeah, simplified asset inventory. A lot of times there's so many different, right? Like, AWS has roughly 480 different types of asset types at a high level. In fact, it has more, but these are assets which users can change, right? Like, in the sense that you can have EC2 instances, EKS clusters, ECS containers, and so on and so forth, right? Like ECR registries, and so on and so forth. So the one of the challenges, both from the compliance perspective as well as management of asset perspective, that the customers face is, how do you get asset inventory across your multi-cloud environments? You have AWS, Google, Azure assets in all of these cloud providers. How do you see a combined view, right? Like, you want to see computes across all of these assets. So this is the page. There has been a huge revamp in the way in which this information is shown, and you see the findings in the context as well, right? Like, it's not just the asset inventory, but this asset has a set of findings in the context. Those findings are also shown. Um, so you get a count of assets, the findings of the asset, and the asset category here. Then you can do all sorts of filtering on top of it. That's a feature that has been added in v2.4.
Wonderful.
Stake compliance for virtual machine. I'm not sure if you know about stake, but this is one of the federal market requirement, U.S. Defense requirement. For example, stake stands for Special Technical Implementation Guidelines. These are DISA stakes. These are guidelines from hardening the virtual machine or a bare metal system, where you have to put certain application configuration in a certain way, or a operating system configuration in a certain way, or you could have package management tools, you could have root certificates. Those have to be kept in a certain way, and the certain best practices have to be followed. Stigs have already uh, mandated, or in the sense said that these are the best practices that you should be following for the distributions. It is similar to CIS, but Stigs goes for operating system as well as distribution hardening. So in this context, we have currently added support for Ubuntu and RHEL, and when it comes to Ubuntu and RHEL, all versions, everything starting from 18.04 onwards for Ubuntu, and RHEL, we have added support for 8.0 and onwards. So all of these findings will now be available as part of the findings section.
Now, how easy or how difficult is it to maintain these, let's say, virtual machines that are deployed on RHEL or Ubuntu base?
Yeah, yeah. So if you have a single pane of glass certainly helps in that context. For example, one of our customers is actually managing 15,000 virtual machines, and their findings, they're basically using both in the sense, STIGs as well as runtime security in the context. Uh, just the ability to actually see all those virtual machines from the same dashboard, as well as keeping a track of all the security issues from the same dashboard, is a big value add. So yeah, absolutely. In general, a single pane of glass from, monitoring all those devices, all those virtual machines from a single pane of glass is a big value add.
Wonderful.
Another thing, another important changes I've shown you before, right? Like all the dashboard, you see a lot of colorful widgets, but essentially
Yes.
those widgets are telling you a story. Like these are the misconfiguration, these are the security issues. Now the security issues can stem from multiple aspects. It could stem from SAST, which is basically the code repositories, DAST, which is dynamic testing, which means that we can scan the endpoints and URLs for findings. Infrastructure as code scanning. In fact, some of the things that are not mentioned probably here are secrets, right? Like you can have secrets, sprawl across code repositories, S3 buckets, container images. We have the ability to actually show uh, all of these aspects in the form of widgets. Of course, you have to onboard the tools. The tooling onboarding itself is much made extremely simplified. In fact, let me just go into the solution, right? Like it's a very simplified addition. All you have to do is add a configuration. You can add the GitHub repo, you can add GitLab repo, you can add Bitbucket repo, or you can execute all of this from the DevSecOps pipeline. I'll show you that in a bit, and then start playbooks in the context, and the playbooks will result will get the data, and that data you'll see in the context of widgets as well as in the findings section, which I'll show you in a bit.
Fantastic.
Another feature that we have added in v2.4, which is particularly important in the on-prem deployments. For example, certificates management. A lot of times what happens is in the on-prem deployment you are using a certificate authority which is your own, right? Like which is organization specific. So in that case, you may want to add certificates of your own organization and use it for connecting to the registry, connecting to the virtual machines, connecting to the cloud assets, and all those things. So this simplifies the whole onboarding journey. Especially this is applicable for on-prem deployments. So again, on-prem deployment has been one of our focus, one of AccuKnox's focus from a deployment perspective. There are roughly 40% of AccuKnox customers are using on-prem deployment, and it's a big value add for them.
Awesome.
Previously we used to ask them to actually uh, we used to have script based or CLI based configuration of these aspects, but now we have automated it as part of the UX itself, the UI flow.
Hmm.
Another thing is in the context of SAST, we have added support for OpenGrep. You might have heard OpenGrep is one
Hmm.
of the tools which shows great security issues in the context of static code scanning. We have integrated that. Again, it's not just OpenGrep, but we have added support for certain other license tools such as Checkmarks, Sneak, Veracode. Uh, we have extensive plans to do furthermore integration. Basically, the aim here is that if a customer is already using a license tool, we should be able to support that. If they're not using a license tool, we should be able to support them with an open source version. And please note that it's not just an open source version. We have built our own customized uh, rules for OpenGrep for certain aspects that we provide as part of the enterprise version. Finding summary, again, the finding summary is an important part because typically what is expected is that users go to the finding summary page because they want to triage. They would want to check what kind of issues are reported in the context of what kind of assets. Like you see here, cloud findings, we have cloud scan reports, cloud scan related findings, we have Kubernetes related findings, we have infrastructure as code related findings, we have SAST findings, and we have container image findings, right? All of that in the same place. But then the most important thing that the customer usually does after this is two things. A, you want those findings to be grouped by, and then you want them to be handled with a particular in a particular way. So for example, these are this is a particular finding and I want to group it together and create a ticket out of it. uh, So all of this integrations have been added. So if I do
Now,
yeah.
when you say group, will all of these four findings be created as one ticket, or how does it work?
So you have both the options, right? Like, so for example, if you group it, if you typically the customer use cases, they want a
Mhm,
single ticket to be created across all the assets for a particular finding, or a lot of times uh, for a given asset. So you might want to group by asset type. In the context of a given asset, you might want to group it together and say, hey, all the AWS accounts or all the storage related devices, I would like to create a single ticket. It frankly speaking, it depends upon the DevSecOps or the security teams
mhm.
requirement out there. But uh, the point is that we provide all sorts of filtering mechanism. We provide all sorts of grouping mechanisms, as well as, you can save all these filters and then revisit at a later point in time. Whatever the saved filters are, they will be available to across all the users within the same tenant. And then exporting findings from a particular asset type itself is quite useful, because a lot of time DevSecOps team might have to send mails or send information across to other teams, and they want export mechanisms to be used. So
Wonderful.
this is a major revamp from our previous screens. Another useful feature that has been added is the rules engine. The rules engine basically allows you to create workflows on the findings. For example, if you have a finding that you know will appear across assets in the future as well, and you want to say, yeah, I don't care about them, you want to change the severity, that can be done. You can, if you have an asset, or if you have critical findings, where you want to automatically generate a ticket in the context without having anyone to log into the system, then the ticket can be automatically created. All of these advanced use cases are now been covered as part of the rules engine. So the findings and rules engine, the whole findings screen has
Rahul,
undergone a
would you
major.
mind showcasing one use case with your rules engine set up one workflow?
Yeah, let me open up this. For example, here is a sample, this thing, right? Like, where I can easily, so anything which is marked risk factor as critical, I would be able to create a ticket in the context. So for example, I can say data type, I want
Mhm.
a specific data type to be used, and that data type, in the context of that data type, I would like to create a action. The action could be either creating a ticket, changing the status, sending it to a channel. All of these things are part of the solution.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a huge roadmap ahead of to make this to make this extensible across multiple data types and doing correlation across multiple data types. So that's where in the future you'll see a lot of enhancements coming up in the play. The other aspect is secret scanning. Like I mentioned before, secret scanning is a big problem. A lot of users, we have seen complaints from customers saying, hey, can we scan our code repositories? Again, code repositories is a fairly regular ask, but apart from code repositories, you have ML data sets, you have S3 buckets, you have container images. All of these things have to be scanned on a periodic basis to check for issues, for check for secrets. uh, this is extremely important feature, and anyone who is using an ASPM solution expects this out of the box.
Wonderful.
Enhanced findings view, I already talked about enhanced finding view. The ability to do multiple group by options, predefined insights, custom combinations are already part of the systems. Reporting is also another big deal, a big change that we have made. So you'll have all sorts of CSPM report. In fact, we have added a capability to now do reporting on a per customer basis. For example, if a customer says, hey, I want uh, the reporting to have this particular widget, apart from the widget that you already have, I need an additional widget where x-axis is this, y-axis is this, or I want a pie chart with a specific this thing. You can then use a custom reporting mechanism to generate that kind of reports. From this another so Typically the security tooling gets consumed in two way, either through a control plane, which is what I've been showing you till now, or through DevSecOps integration. And if you ask me, a lot of application development or development specific toolkits such as SaaS tools, Dast, secret scanning. All of this gets integrated using DevSecOps integration, which means that you need to have CI/CD pipelines in the context, GitHub Actions. All of this have to be supported. So you'll see here DevSecOps integration. So in fact, let me take you to the actual screens, and then user gets a step-by-step view as to what all things have to be done. For example, in the context of Azure DevOps, you want to do container scanning. So you'll be redirected to the Azure container scanning, AccuKnox container scanning marketplace action, especially for Azure DevOps. Similarly, if you want it for something else, for example, GitHub Actions, you want ISC scanning, you'll see the corresponding marketplace action for the corresponding tool. And all this information will then be available in the control plane. All the scan data will then appear in the assets will appear in the assets page, and the scan results will appear in the findings page. So all this is automated. The simplification of DevSecOps journey is an extremely key element to the overall security proposition, and that's what has been achieved as part of v2.4. So
Wonderful.
these are the
So,
primary highlights of 2.4.
great, great. Was really interesting, Rahul. And with respect to the upcoming release trains that you've envisioned or let's say built as part of upcoming quarter, what would be the top three V2.5 or whatever version that you call it, the next one, V3.0, I assume. So, what would be the top three that would be the highlights?
So we are planning for v3.0 by the end of April, which is a major release again. The primary aspects that we'll be working in 3.0 is, one is we have model knocks, the AI ML security that will be launched as part of that's a big ticket item that we have been working since past 6 months. That will be launched as part of v3.0. In fact, as we speak, it's already been released as an alpha version. We've been taking customer design partner feedback and improving the overall user experience, right? Like, basically improving the user experience is more important than everything else, is what we have seen. So model locks is one important feature. The other important feature is advanced security graphs. So we have security graphs today in the context of Kubernetes identities and entitlements management, and certain other things, right? But we want to expand that scope and include security findings, assets, everything, across everything. Since we have ability to show findings and onboard assets in the context of code, container image, Kubernetes clusters, virtual machine clusters, cloud assets, put all of these things on a security graph and show users a prioritized view. So that's another action item. That's a big ticket action item, which we have been working on for quite some time. So that's a major upgrade that you'll see. uh, Again, there are so many other features that we are developing. You'll see a continuous improvement in UX. A lot of our customers have asked. We are working with a lot of design partners for several other things. For example, for reporting improvements, compliance improvements, we have received requests for CMMC compliance addition. So that will be available as part of v3.0. We have also received compliance requirement from AI perspective. For example, EU AI Act, ISO 42001, NIST AI RMF frameworks. All of those will be integrated as part of model logs. So
So
yeah,
the
stay tuned.
CNMC also falls under model knocks, huh, Rahul?
Sorry, what is
AI,
it?
CMMC compliance that you mentioned, it sounded
Yeah.
new to me.
No, no,
Does
no.
it also?
CMMC compliance is a different one. Typically, it's applicable to federal customers again. So we have some of our federal customers have been asking for that. So apart from the sticks that we have already launched, CMMC is something that is applicable in the context of cloud assets, and it's been one of the primary asks from federal customers. So that's been asked. So it's not in the context of model logs. Model logs compliance requirements are completely different. The ISO 42001, UAI Act, and NIST AI RMF, those are from the model knocks perspective.
Amazing, amazing. Wonderful. So it was really nice of you, Rahul, to spend 30 minutes showcasing the platform and also the upcoming features to all the viewers watching us. We had about 12 to 15 viewers joining in, and also we had one good comment from Musaddiq. And when we also have one question from Balaji, I'd like to read it out. I'll also showcase that on flash that on the screen. When you say same issues or specific findings can arise, do you have any plans for AI that can be leveraged here for rules engine?
Absolutely, absolutely. AI is coming in a big way for AccuKnox. Everything from using AI for a remediation, improving the remediation life cycle, using so apart from the AI security itself that I've been talking about, that's the Model Knox release that will happen as part of v3.0. We are focused on using AI itself for from prioritization perspective, from identity, making sure that the categorization is done appropriately, and the remediation. Right, the most important thing is the remediation aspects, ensuring that the step by step aspects. So it is possible for us to make use of AI because we have the tenant's security data. We can say, hey, this asset of this particular type with this particular vulnerability, what could be the remediation steps? And we have certain models that we have tried which greatly improves on the remediation cycle for some of those findings. So absolutely, stay tuned in for v3.0, and you'll see huge improvements in the terms in the way in which remediation is handled overall.
Thank you, Rahul. And one last thing, Sadik says this V2.0 looks clean, comprehensive, covering many essential aspects that need to be addressed. Kudos.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Masadik.
Sadik. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So we are 1 minute up against the time. Thank you very much, Rahul, and all the viewers joining us. Stay tuned for more such tech talks. We'll have a bunch of our product team and solutions engineer team come more often in this platform and showcase the product features and also the user pain points that we've been taking up and resolving. Stay tuned for more info and talk to you soon.